Okay, let's dive into this because today we're looking at something completely unprecedented in the financial markets. We're going to unpack the strategy and the macroeconomic thesis behind the newly launched HANET UKREN ETF. That's the Ukraine Reconstruction ETF. Now, right off the bat, let me be absolutely clear. Our objective in this explainer is to analyze the financial mechanics and the structural thesis of this fund purely based on the source material. We are not taking any political sides here. We're simply unpacking how the market is attempting to price and package the rebuilding of an entire nation.
I really want to anchor our presentation with this absolutely massive number, $524 billion. According to official estimates from the World Bank, the European Commission, the UN, and the Ukrainian government, this is the projected cost for Ukraine's reconstruction and economic recovery over the next decade. Take a second and just let that sink in. It is a staggering, almost incomprehensible figure that represents what is highly likely to be the single largest European investment program since the Marshall Plan right after World War II.
So, here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the $500 billion rebuild, then we'll look inside the actual UKRN ETF, break down its three investment pillars, explore Ukraine's surprising role as a defense supplier, and wrap up by weighing the vision against the speculation.
Section 1. The $500 billion rebuild.
The scope of the damage here is just vast, and the rebuilding effort? Well, it isn't just about pouring concrete. The official damage assessments explicitly target the absolute rebuilding of housing, transport networks, the energy grid, heavy industry, and civil infrastructure. We're talking about modernizing an entire national economy from the ground up. If and when this massive reconstruction begins in earnest, the companies providing the machinery, the building materials, the electrification tech, and the industrial automation, they are positioned to see truly historic demand.
Section 2. Inside the UKRN ETF.
And this brilliantly illustrates what we're talking about. We are looking directly at the official fact sheet for the HANEF Ukraine Reconstruction UCITS ETF, which trades on exchanges like the London Stock Exchange and Xetra. The entire premise of this fund, tracking the Verify Ukraine Reconstruction Index, is to give investors access to the very companies that are expected to drive this historic rebuilding phase.
But I know exactly what you might be thinking right now. It's the most obvious question. Why on earth launch a reconstruction ETF right now when the conflict is still actively raging and a definitive end isn't currently in sight? It's a totally fair piece of skepticism.
Well, the issuer's rationale is perfectly captured right here by Tom Bailey, the head of research at HANET. He explains that you want to make sure there's an investment vehicle ready for investors before that inflection point happens. The idea is, if you build it after peace or stability is officially declared, the market will have already priced all of it in, and investors will have missed the boat. So essentially, this ETF is designed to act as a kind of waiting room for future stability.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sector breakdown as it stands today. It's heavily concentrated. Nearly 79% of the fund is dominated by industrials, followed by materials at roughly 14%. And these top holdings, they aren't small regional players. They are massive global US and European industrial titans. We're talking about companies like Caterpillar, Siemens Energy, and BAE Systems. Because realistically, these are the only companies that actually possess the sheer scale required to take on national-level infrastructure and power grid contracts.
Okay, but we have to address the elephant in the room. Right now, a Ukraine Reconstruction ETF actually holds 0 Ukrainian companies. Literally none. On top of that, financial press reports highlight that a huge portion of the fund, over 60% at times, has just been sitting in cash. Why? While historically, the Ukrainian stock market has been very small and pretty illiquid. Plus, many of the direct domestic projects that will eventually drive the rebuild simply don't even exist yet. So the ETF is holding cash and global industrials right now just to maintain liquidity and be ready to deploy capital when those local opportunities finally pop up.
Section 3. The 3 investment pillars.
To solve that problem we just talked about, the index provider, Verify, actually designed a 3-pillar methodology. Pillar 1 is what we just saw, those global and European infrastructure stocks that are going to win the big initial contracts. Pillar 2 specifically targets Ukrainian public companies. And Pillar 3 is honestly fascinating. It allows for up to a 5% allocation in unlisted vehicles or closed-ended investment trusts. This means if a fund bundles up private, unlisted Ukrainian tech or drone companies and lists that fund in London, the ETF can buy into it. It's a clever backdoor into private markets.
So the crucial takeaway here is how the rules are actually tilted to heavily favor the local economy over time. To get into the index, a standard global company needs a minimum market cap of $100 million. But for a Ukrainian company, they slashed that hurdle in half to just $50 million. They've also baked in a fast-track provision for Ukrainian initial public offerings. The whole methodology is deliberately designed to act as an automatic buyer, a guaranteed provider of capital for the very first generation of new Ukrainian public companies the second they hit the market.
The sources identify several potential future inclusions once liquidity and listings align. We're looking at telecom giants like Kyivstar and tech standouts like Swarmer. Furthermore, if globally recognized, Ukrainian-founded tech unicorns like Grammarly or the automation platform Kreos ever decide to go public, the index is waiting for them. But, and this is a big but, there is a strict negative screen. Any company found to have an ongoing operational presence in Russia is explicitly excluded from the index, and they actually use databases from the Kyiv School of Economics to enforce this rule.
Section 4. Ukraine as a defense supplier.
Let's move to and see how this builds into an entirely different sector. Out of pure necessity, Ukraine is rapidly transforming from a receiver of Western aid into a highly capable defense tech manufacturer. The production scale is staggering, from 800,000 drone units in 2023 jumping to 2 million in 2024, with a government target of 7 million by 2026. They are scaling tech production under incredibly difficult wartime conditions at an industrial pace, building out an ecosystem of roughly 500 domestic manufacturers.
And let me tell you, global defense titans are definitely taking notice. This isn't just about shipping weapons over the border anymore. It's about building them right there on the ground. Major Western companies like the UK's BAE Systems, Germany's Rheinmetall, and America's Northrop Grumman are actively setting up joint ventures, repair facilities, and actual production lines directly inside Ukraine. This localization of defense manufacturing is, for all intents and purposes, the very first stage of the country's industrial reconstruction.
Section 5. Vision versus speculation.
Now, let's be real for a second. The fund's own literature and the financial press are very transparent about the severe risks involved here. This ETF is fully exposed to the harsh realities of an ongoing, active conflict. There is immense political and economic instability to factor in. The companies involved will be heavily reliant on public spending, international aid, and shifting government regulations. And perhaps the biggest risk of all, there is absolutely no known timeline for when large-scale, nationwide reconstruction can truly, safely begin.
So what does this all mean? Which leaves us with this final vital question posed by the financial press. Is this a visionary investment, getting in at the ground floor of a massive economic rebirth, or is it just pure geopolitical speculation? This ETF certainly offers a structured way to participate in what could be the rebuilding of a nation, but make no mistake, the ultimate outcome of this thesis won't be decided on the stock market. It will be decided on the geopolitical stage. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep learning.